Detective Thomas Parker's morning routine never varied. Black coffee with 2 sugars, ironed uniform, and precisely positioned badge. The California sun streamed through his bathroom window as he scrutinized his reflection, adjusting the badge one final time. 20 years on the force had taught him to take pride in his appearance, even if most of his days consisted of routine patrols through Beverly Hills' most exclusive neighborhoods. Across town, Michael Richardson's morning was anything but routine. The self-made billionaire sat in the back of his Bentley Azure, his attention divided between his tablet displaying architectural plans and the stunning properties lining the streets. At 38, Michael had transformed a small tech startup into Richardson Technologies, now valued at over $12 billion. His latest project, a state-of-the-art innovation hub, needed the perfect location. The Bentley's interior provided a welcome respite from the growing heat outside. James Cooper, Michael's driver of 5 years, navigated the vehicle slowly past each potential property. That Mediterranean revival style could work well, Michael mused, making notes on his tablet. The property's expansive grounds and private entrance aligned perfectly with his vision for a secure yet welcoming campus. Detective Parker's patrol car turned onto Maple Drive just as the Bentley passed its 3rd property of the morning. Parker noticed the luxury vehicle's crawling pace immediately. In his experience, even in Beverly Hills, slow-moving vehicles warranted attention. He didn't recognize the car as belonging to any of the regular residents, and something about it raised his suspicions. Inside the Bentley, Michael remained absorbed in his work. The next property on his list had recently hosted a technology conference, and its modern architecture particularly interested him. He adjusted his Italian silk tie, a habit from his early pitching days, and reviewed his notes from previous site visits. The morning had started promisingly. Michael's assistant had arranged viewings of several properties for later that week, but he preferred to get a feel for them first, understanding their relationship to the surrounding area. His success had been built on this attention to detail, on seeing potential where others might miss it. James noticed Detective Parker's patrol car in the rearview mirror before Michael did. "Sir," he said professionally, "we have law enforcement behind us." Michael glanced up from his tablet, his expression remaining neutral. Despite his success, despite his face gracing the covers of Forbes and Fortune, despite his regular meetings with world leaders and tech titans, he'd been in this situation before. Detective Parker ran his practiced eyes over the vehicle. The Bentley's windows were tinted within legal limits, but he couldn't make out the occupants clearly. The car's slow progress past high-value properties set off warning bells in his mind, honed by years of experience protecting one of America's wealthiest neighborhoods. Michael calmly began gathering his documentation before any request was made. His driver's license, car registration, company ID, and business cards were always within reach, a lesson learned early in his success. The morning sun caught his platinum watch as he moved, a timepiece that cost more than most officers' yearly salary. James pulled the Bentley to a perfect stop as Detective Parker activated his lights. The quiet street suddenly seemed very still, the manicured palm trees standing like silent witnesses. Michael took a slow, measured breath, his mind already mapping out the encounter to come. He built his empire by staying calm under pressure, by turning challenging situations into opportunities for progress. Detective Parker radioed in his location and the vehicle's description, following protocol. He hadn't run the plates yet, hadn't checked who might own such an expensive car. His instincts, shaped by thousands of patrols, told him something was off about this situation. As he prepared to exit his patrol car, he couldn't know that this routine stop would soon become anything but routine. The morning air shimmered with heat as both men prepared for their encounter, each viewing the situation through lenses shaped by vastly different life experiences. Neither could predict how the next few minutes would spiral into headlines, viral videos, and conversations that would echo far beyond the palm-lined streets of Beverly Hills. Detective Parker approached the Bentley with measured steps, his right hand resting casually near his holster. The morning sun cast long shadows across the pristine street as neighbors began their daily routines, unaware of the unfolding situation. Through the tinted windows, he could make out two figures, both wearing suits that probably cost more than his monthly salary. "Step out of the vehicle," Parker commanded, his voice carrying the authority of 20 years on the force. Michael exchanged a brief glance with James, a silent acknowledgement of their shared experience with similar situations. "Sir, I'm actually in the middle of a business meeting," Michael responded calmly, already holding his license and registration. "May I ask why I'm being stopped?" Parker's jaw tightened. The calm, measured response wasn't what he'd expected. "You've been driving suspiciously slow through a high-security neighborhood," he stated, taking the documents with a quick motion. His eyes scanned the license, noting the Beverly Hills address, but choosing to disregard it. "What's your business here?" Michael maintained his composure, reaching for his tablet. "I'm reviewing properties for my company's new headquarters, Richardson Technologies. Perhaps you've heard of it." He offered his business card, gold embossed with his title as CEO and founder. Parker barely glanced at it, his suspicions seemingly growing with each polite response. The situation shifted when Parker noticed Michael's hand moving toward the tablet. "Hands where I can see them," he barked, his stance becoming more aggressive. James tensed in the driver's seat but remained still, years of training kicking in. Michael slowly raised his hands, his expression unchanged despite the escalating tension. Mrs. Eleanor Peterson, a retired judge walking her Yorkshire Terrier, slowed her pace to observe the scene. Her morning routine suddenly interrupted by what appeared to be an unnecessarily tense traffic stop. She pulled out her phone, her judicial instincts telling her to document what she was witnessing. "Exit the vehicle now," Parker demanded, his voice carrying across the quiet street. Michael complied with deliberate slowness, his bespoke suit catching the morning light. "Detective, I want to cooperate fully," he said, maintaining eye contact. "But I'd like to understand why this situation is escalating." Parker's response was to grab Michael's arm, spinning him around to face the car. The sudden movement caused Michael's tablet to fall, its screen cracking against the pristine pavement. More neighbors emerged from their homes, drawn by the commotion on their usually peaceful street. James watched helplessly as his employer was pressed against the vehicle, knowing any movement on his part would only worsen the situation. He discreetly pressed the emergency alert on his phone, sending a signal to Michael's security team and legal department. "I've been nothing but cooperative, detective," Michael stated firmly, his voice carrying the same authority he used in board meetings. "This treatment is unnecessary and unprofessional." Parker responded by roughly patting him down, finding nothing but an expensive phone and a leather wallet. More phones appeared in windows and doorways, recording the scene. Mrs. Peterson had moved closer, her years on the bench making her particularly attuned to potential rights violations. She wasn't the only one who recognized the disturbing nature of what was unfolding. "Call for backup," Parker spoke into his radio, maintaining his hold on Michael. "Possible suspicious activity on Maple Drive." The words hung in the air, their implications clear to everyone watching. Michael closed his eyes briefly, centering himself as he had done countless times during difficult business negotiations. The morning breeze carried whispers from the growing crowd. Some recognized the Bentley from charity events, others remembered seeing similar cars at high-profile gatherings. But none could understand why its occupant was being treated like a criminal. James remained in the driver's seat, his hands visible on the steering wheel, watching through the rearview mirror as his employer maintained his dignity despite the humiliating situation. He knew Michael's security team would arrive soon, but he worried about how much damage would be done before then. Parker stood firmly, his decisions seeming to cement with each passing moment, unaware that his next actions would soon cascade into consequences beyond his imagination. The sound of approaching sirens filled the air, marking the point of no return in what had started as a routine traffic stop, but was about to become much more. The arrival of 3 additional patrol cars transformed the quiet Beverly Hills street into an impromptu command center. Officer Rachel Martinez stepped out of her vehicle, immediately noticing the growing crowd of well-dressed onlookers. The Bentley's presence alone should have warranted a more delicate approach, but Parker seemed committed to his course of action. "Sir, I found this suspicious device," Parker announced, holding up Michael's cracked tablet. The silver Richardson Technologies logo gleamed in the sunlight, its custom design unmistakable to anyone familiar with the tech industry. Michael remained against the car, his expression composed despite the ridiculousness of the situation. "That's a standard company tablet containing architectural plans," Michael explained patiently. "If you'll allow me to demonstrate," Parker cut him off with a sharp gesture. "We'll have the tech unit examine it." He handed the tablet to Martinez, who recognized the device immediately from her husband's tech company. James watched the scene unfold from the driver's seat, maintaining his professional demeanor while discreetly updating Michael's security team via text. The lead security consultant's response was immediate. 5 minutes out. Legal team en route. Keep him calm. The gathering crowd had swelled to include morning joggers, dog walkers, and residents drawn to their windows by the commotion. Among them, Bradley Thompson, a prominent real estate developer, squinted at the scene before his eyes widened in recognition. He'd sat across from Michael Richardson at last month's City Planning Commission meeting. Officer Martinez approached Parker, speaking in low tones. "Detective, are you sure about this? That tablet looks legitimate." Parker dismissed her concerns with a wave. "We can't be too careful. This neighborhood has had break-ins before." His voice carried an edge of defensiveness. Michael's phone buzzed in Parker's evidence bag, likely his executive team wondering why their CEO hadn't arrived for the morning's video conference with Tokyo investors. Millions in potential funding hung in the balance, but Parker seemed oblivious to the ripple effects of his actions. "Detective," Michael spoke clearly, his voice carrying the authority that had commanded boardrooms worldwide. "You're making a serious mistake. I suggest you contact Police Commissioner Wilson immediately." The mention of the commissioner's name caused Martinez to glance sharply at Parker. Bradley Thompson had seen enough. He stepped forward from the crowd, his own status as a community leader evident in his bearing. "Officers, there seems to be a misunderstanding. This man is Michael Richardson, CEO of Richardson Technologies. He's been working with the city on a major development project." Parker's stance shifted slightly, but he doubled down. "Sir, please step back. This is an active investigation." The words sounded hollow even to his own ears as more whispers rippled through the crowd. Someone mentioned the recent Forbes cover story about Richardson Technologies' revolutionary AI developments. Officer Martinez examined the tablet more closely, noting the custom security features and proprietary software. She'd seen enough evidence in her career to recognize authenticity. "Detective," she began, but Parker cut her off with a sharp gesture. The sound of approaching vehicles drew everyone's attention. 2 black SUVs turned onto the street, Michael's security team arriving with precision timing. The lead vehicle bore diplomatic plates, a detail that caused Martinez to inhale sharply. James allowed himself a small smile. He'd been with Michael long enough to know that the situation was about to shift dramatically. The security team's arrival would coincide perfectly with the legal department's response, a choreographed dance of corporate power meeting law enforcement. Michael remained still, his expensive suit collecting dust against the car, but his eyes tracked the new arrivals with calculated awareness. He built his empire by understanding timing, by knowing when to act and when to wait. This moment required patience for maximum effect. Parker's radio crackled to life. The dispatcher's voice carried a note of urgency. "Detective Parker, be advised. Chief Wilson is requesting immediate contact. Priority 1. The crowd murmured as Parker's face tightened, the first crack in his confident facade beginning to show. The morning sun had climbed higher, casting shorter shadows across the manicured lawns of Beverly Hills. What had started as a routine traffic stop had evolved into something far more significant, and the consequences were about to unfold in ways that would reverberate through the department for months to come. The atmosphere shifted dramatically as Amanda Pierce, one of Los Angeles's most formidable corporate attorneys, emerged from the lead security vehicle. Her Louboutin heels clicked purposefully against the pavement as she approached, legal briefcase in hand. The morning sun caught her practiced smile, the kind that had preceded countless courtroom victories. "Detective Parker," she called out, her voice carrying the perfect blend of authority and professional courtesy. "I'm Amanda Pierce, General Counsel for Richardson Technologies." She paused, allowing her words to sink in. "I believe you're currently detaining my client, Michael Richardson, without probable cause." Parker's complexion paled slightly as he recognized the name. Pierce's reputation in legal circles was legendary, her track record of winning high-profile cases against law enforcement agencies particularly noteworthy. Officer Martinez took an instinctive step back, already anticipating the storm about to break. Bradley Thompson had moved closer to James, speaking quietly through the Bentley's open window. "I've got the mayor on the line. She's livid. Richardson Technologies was supposed to announce their new headquarters location today." James nodded slightly, knowing Michael could handle the business fallout, but the principle of the situation demanded accountability. Pierce approached Michael, her experienced eyes cataloging every detail of his detainment. "Mr. Richardson, are you all right?" she asked, loud enough for the filming crowd to hear. Michael's composed response carried clearly across the now silent street. "I'm fine, Amanda. Though I believe Detective Parker may have damaged company property during this unnecessary encounter." The security team had positioned themselves strategically around the scene, their presence both reassuring and intimidating. Through their earpieces came word that Police Commissioner Wilson was 3 minutes out, his morning schedule cleared for this emerging crisis. "Detective," Pierce continued, opening her briefcase with practiced precision, "I have here Mr. Richardson's complete identification portfolio, including his recent meetings with the governor regarding technology initiatives in the state." She extracted a folder with deliberate slowness. "Shall we discuss this situation, or would you prefer to wait for Commissioner Wilson?" Parker's radio crackled again, more insistent this time. The dispatcher's voice held a note of barely concealed urgency. "Detective Parker, Chief Wilson demands immediate status update. Mayor's office is involved." The crowd's phones captured his visible flinch at the message. Officer Martinez had already begun quietly, directing other officers to stand down, her experience telling her this situation had escalated far beyond a routine traffic stop. The cracked tablet in her hand suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds, each scratch potentially worth thousands in damages. A sleek town car turned onto the street, its official plates causing the gathering crowd to part respectfully. Police Commissioner Wilson emerged, his face set in the grave expression of a man preparing to handle a political powder keg. His eyes swept the scene, taking in the handcuffed tech CEO, the filming neighbors, and his increasingly uncomfortable detective. "Mr. Richardson," Wilson called out, striding forward with his hand extended, only to stop short at the sight of the handcuffs. Detective Parker removed those immediately. His tone left no room for discussion. As Parker fumbled with the keys, Wilson turned to Pierce. "Amanda, my sincerest apologies for this incident." Michael rubbed his wrists as the handcuffs came off, straightening his custom suit with dignity. The morning sunlight caught his movement, and several cameras clicked rapidly, capturing what would soon become iconic images across social media platforms. "Commissioner," Michael spoke calmly, his voice carrying the weight of his position. "While I understand the need for vigilant law enforcement, today's incident represents a concerning breach of protocol and judgment." His words were measured, each syllable calculated for maximum impact. Pierce had already begun documenting the scene, her assistant photographing the damaged tablet and taking statements from witnesses. Bradley Thompson stepped forward, offering his own account of recognizing Michael from city planning meetings. The narrative was building, and Parker's earlier confidence had evaporated completely. The morning had become a perfect storm of accountability meeting authority, with Michael Richardson standing calmly at its center. As Commissioner Wilson began coordinating damage control with his officers, The implications of Parker's actions were already rippling outward, promising consequences that would extend far beyond this palm-lined Beverly Hills street. Police Commissioner Wilson's face darkened as he examined the cracked tablet, its damaged screen displaying the confidential plans for Richardson Technologies' expansion. Parker stood awkwardly to the side, his earlier authority diminishing with each passing moment. The growing crowd of onlookers had transformed into an impromptu press gallery, their phones documenting every detail. "Do you understand what you've interrupted here, Detective?" Wilson asked, his voice carrying the weight of decades in law enforcement. Mr. Richardson was scheduled to announce a $2 billion investment in our city's technology sector this afternoon. The words hung in the air, their implications clear to everyone present. Amanda Pierce efficiently coordinated with her legal team, their tablets and phones synchronized in a dance of damage control. "Commissioner," she interjected smoothly, "we have confirmed interviews with major networks requesting statements. The story is already trending on multiple platforms." Michael stood slightly apart from the chaos, his phone now returned and buzzing constantly with messages from concerned board members and investors. James had brought him a fresh suit jacket from the Bentley's trunk, the simple act of clothing replacement captured by dozens of cameras. "The Tokyo investors are still waiting, sir," James mentioned quietly, holding up a tablet displaying the time. Michael nodded, his mind already calculating how to turn this incident into an opportunity. "Amanda, prepare the press room at headquarters. We'll need to address this directly." Officer Martinez approached Wilson, her face etched with professional concern. "Sir, I tried to advise Detective Parker about the situation," she began, but Wilson raised a hand to stop her. "Your objections have been noted, officer. We'll address the chain of command issues later." Parker's attempt to speak was cut short by Wilson's sharp glare. "Detective, report to my office immediately after this. Your badge and weapon will remain with Officer Martinez for now." The words carried the finality of a career suddenly derailed by poor judgment. Bradley Thompson had begun quietly informing other city council members, his own phone buzzing with concerned responses. The planned technology hub would have transformed a struggling section of the city, providing thousands of jobs and millions in tax revenue. Now that project hung in balance, its fate tied to the next few hours' developments. "Mr. Richardson," Wilson addressed Michael directly, his tone shifting to careful diplomacy. "On behalf of the department, I want to express our deepest regrets. This incident does not reflect our training or values." Behind him, Parker seemed to shrink further into himself, the weight of his actions becoming increasingly apparent. Michael straightened his new jacket, a subtle gesture that commanded attention from the assembled crowd. "Commissioner," he responded, his voice carrying easily across the hushed street, "this situation presents us with an opportunity to address systemic issues in law enforcement procedures." Amanda Pierce recognized her cue, stepping forward with a prepared statement. "Richardson Technologies remains committed to community development," she announced, her words clearly intended for the recording devices. "However, today's incident necessitates a thorough review of police engagement protocols." The sun had climbed higher, casting shorter shadows across the manicured lawns of Beverly Hills. Officer Martinez discreetly collected Parker's badge and weapon, the metal gleaming dully in the morning light. The crowd had grown larger, with local news vans now parking at both ends of the street. "Sir," James approached Michael, "the board is requesting an emergency meeting. They're concerned about market reaction when this news breaks." Michael nodded, his expression remaining carefully neutral for the cameras. The incident had evolved far beyond a simple traffic stop, transforming into a potential catalyst for change. Commissioner Wilson's phone buzzed again, the mayor's office demanding immediate updates. The political implications were expanding exponentially, threatening to engulf his department in a storm of public scrutiny and reform demands. Amanda Pierce had already begun orchestrating the next phase, her team coordinating with Richardson Technologies' PR department. The narrative would need careful shaping, transforming a potential crisis into an opportunity for meaningful dialogue about law enforcement practices. Michael checked his watch, a subtle gesture caught by several cameras. In less than an hour, he had gone from potential property buyer to the center of a national conversation about law enforcement reform. As his security team began coordinating his departure, he knew the real work was just beginning. Inside the gleaming Richardson Technologies headquarters, Michael sat at the head of the mahogany conference table, his composed demeanor masking the morning's turmoil. The boardroom's floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, while displays showed real-time social media reactions to the incident. His executive team waited anxiously for his response to the unfolding situation. The Tokyo investors have extended their deadline until tomorrow, Emily Chen, his chief financial officer, reported while sliding a tablet across the polished surface. They're concerned about potential instability, but they remain interested in the AI development project. Michael nodded, his fingers drumming thoughtfully on the table's surface. Amanda Pierce entered the room with purposeful strides, her legal team following with stacks of documents. The press conference is scheduled for 2 hours from now, she announced, placing a preliminary statement before Michael. We've received calls from every major network, and the video has reached 10 million views across platforms. Robert Hayes, the head of public relations, projected a series of headlines on the main screen. Tech billionaire detained in Beverly Hills. Richardson Technologies CEO faces profiling incident. Police department under fire after high-profile stop. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Commissioner Wilson has offered a private meeting, Amanda continued, checking her phone. He's suggesting a joint press conference to announce new training initiatives. Michael raised his hand, silencing the murmurs of discussion around the table. His response would shape not just the company's future, but potentially influence law enforcement practices across the country. Outside the boardroom, protesters had begun gathering, their signs visible from the upper floors. News helicopters circled the building, their cameras capturing the growing crowd. Social media buzzed with hashtags demanding accountability and reform, while Richardson Technologies' stock price fluctuated with each new development. Detective Parker's record shows 3 previous complaints, Amanda added, sliding another document forward. All settled quietly by the department. Michael studied the information, his expression thoughtful. The morning's incident had handed him unexpected leverage, but wielding it required careful consideration. Emily cleared her throat, drawing attention to the financial projections on her screen. The new headquarters announcement was meant to boost investor confidence. This incident could work in our favor if handled correctly, but we need to act decisively. The numbers told a story of opportunity amidst crisis. Michael stood, moving to the window. Below, the crowd had grown larger, their chants barely audible through the thick glass. His reflection showed a man unruffled by the morning's events, his suit now immaculate, his posture radiating confident authority. He built his empire by recognizing pivotal moments. This was certainly one of them. Amanda, he spoke finally, turning to face his team, prepare a comprehensive proposal for police reform initiatives. Include funding for enhanced training programs and community engagement. His voice carried the same calm authority that had characterized his response to Parker's actions. Emily, allocate $50 million for the initial phase. The room buzzed with renewed energy as his executive team began coordinating their responses. Robert immediately began drafting press releases, while Emily's fingers flew across her keyboard, adjusting budget allocations. Amanda's legal team huddled together, their whispered discussions focusing on implementation strategies. One more thing, Michael added, his voice cutting through the activity. Ensure Detective Parker receives due process. This isn't about punishment. It's about progress. The statement reflected the measured approach that had made him successful, transforming potential controversy into constructive change. His phone buzzed with a message from James, property owner on Maple Drive, called, still interested in discussing the headquarters location. Michael allowed himself a small smile. Even in chaos, opportunities emerged. The morning's incident had highlighted the need for corporate involvement in community development. Commissioner Wilson's office had sent over preliminary reform proposals, their quick response indicating the department's eagerness to address the situation. Michael's team began reviewing the documents, identifying areas for improvement and expansion. The incident was evolving from a personal affront into a catalyst for systemic change. As the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the boardroom, Michael Richardson stood at the intersection of corporate power and social responsibility. His response would not only define his company's legacy, but potentially reshape the relationship between law enforcement and the communities they served. The real work was just beginning. The press conference room at Richardson Technologies hummed with anticipation. Camera crews jostled for position as Michael Richardson stepped onto the stage, accompanied by Commissioner Wilson and Mayor Elizabeth Turner. The afternoon light filtered through the windows, casting a golden glow across the assembled dignitaries and media representatives. "Good afternoon," Michael began, his voice steady and measured. "Today's events have brought us to a crucial moment of reflection and opportunity." The cameras clicked rapidly, capturing his composed expression. Behind him, a large screen displayed the new initiative's logo, Future Forward, Community and Law Enforcement United. Commissioner Wilson shifted uncomfortably as Michael outlined the morning's incident, his retelling both gracious and unflinching in its accuracy. The viral videos played silently on screens around the room, their images now familiar to millions across social media platforms. Detective Parker's absence was notable, though his actions had catalyzed this gathering. Richardson Technologies is committing $100 million to establish the Future Forward initiative, Michael announced, causing a ripple of excitement through the assembled press. This program will focus on three key areas: law enforcement training reform, community engagement, and technological solutions for transparent policing. Mayor Turner stepped forward to express the city's support, her political instincts recognizing the potential for positive change. "This partnership represents a transformative moment for our city," she declared, her words carefully chosen for maximum impact. Mr. Richardson's response to today's unfortunate incident demonstrates true leadership. Amanda Pierce, standing at the side of the stage, monitored the real-time social media response. Hashtags were trending positively, with public sentiment shifting from outrage over the incident to enthusiasm for the proposed solutions. The company's stock had stabilized, even showing signs of uptick as investors responded to Michael's leadership. "We've already identified the location for our new headquarters," Michael continued, drawing surprised murmurs from the audience. "The Maple Drive property will become not just a technology hub, but a center for community engagement and police training." The announcement transformed the morning's confrontation site into a symbol of progress. Bradley Thompson, seated in the front row, nodded approvingly. The property value implications alone would make headlines, but the symbolic significance carried even greater weight. The location where Michael had faced discrimination would now serve as a beacon for change. Commissioner Wilson took the podium, his years of experience evident in his measured tone. "The department acknowledges the need for change," he stated firmly. "With Richardson Technologies' support, we're implementing immediate reforms in training and community engagement protocols." The questions from reporters came rapidly, but Michael handled each with characteristic poise. When asked about Detective Parker, his response reflected measured grace. "This initiative isn't about individual actions, but systemic improvement. Everyone deserves the opportunity to learn and grow from their experiences." Emily Chen, watching from the side, smiled as the market responded positively to each announcement. The Tokyo investors had already confirmed their continued commitment, impressed by Michael's handling of the crisis. The morning's potential disaster had transformed into a masterclass in crisis management and corporate responsibility. James stood at the back of the room, remembering the tension of the morning's encounter. The contrast between Michael handcuffed against his car and now commanding the stage highlighted the power of measured response over reactive anger. The security team exchanged knowing glances. Their boss had turned a potential tragedy into triumph. As the press conference concluded, Michael remained on stage for individual interviews. Each response reinforced his commitment to positive change, his words carefully crafted to inspire action rather than division. The afternoon sun cast his shadow long across the stage, a visual metaphor for his expanding influence on community reform. Amanda approached with the latest social media metrics. The announcement had generated overwhelmingly positive responses, with both community activists and law enforcement representatives expressing support for the initiative. The morning's viral videos were now being shared alongside clips from the press conference, creating a narrative of progress and solution-focused leadership. Outside, the crowd had evolved from protesters to supporters, their signs now expressing enthusiasm for the Future Forward initiative. News helicopters captured the scene from above. The gathering outside Richardson Technologies headquarters had become a spontaneous celebration of potential change. Michael's phone buzzed with a message from his board chairman, masterful handling of the situation. The board unanimously supports the initiative. He allowed himself a small smile as he prepared for the next round of interviews. The day's events had opened an unexpected door for meaningful change, and he intended to walk through it with purpose. 6 months after the incident on Maple Drive, the transformative power of a single morning became clear. The Richardson Technologies Innovation Campus rose impressively where Michael had once been handcuffed, its modern architecture incorporating elements of transparency and openness. Floor-to-ceiling windows allowed passersby to observe the daily collaboration between tech innovators and community leaders. Detective Parker, now Officer Parker, stood before a group of recruits in the campus's state-of-the-art training facility. His personal experience had become a powerful teaching tool, his humility and willingness to learn making him an unexpected but effective advocate for change. One moment of prejudice can destroy years of trust, he explained to the attentive audience, but it can also become a catalyst for transformation. Michael watched the session from an observation room, accompanied by Commissioner Wilson and Mayor Turner. The Future Forward initiative had exceeded expectations, with police departments across the country requesting access to its training programs. The incident that could have deepened divisions had instead built bridges. The Tokyo partnership has expanded beyond our projections, Emily Chen reported during the quarterly board meeting. Richardson Technologies stock had reached record highs, with investors particularly attracted to the company's commitment to social responsibility. The $100 million investment in community programs had generated returns far beyond financial metrics. Amanda Pierce's legal team had transformed as well, shifting focus from defensive strategies to proactive community engagement. The conference room where they had once planned crisis management now hosted regular meetings between law enforcement officials and community leaders, their discussions centered on continuous improvement rather than confrontation. James still drove the Bentley past the campus each morning, but now the slow pace celebrated progress rather than invited suspicion. The security team had expanded their role, working closely with local law enforcement to develop protocols that balance safety with respect. Their example had become a model for private-public security partnerships. Bradley Thompson stood with Michael at the campus's main entrance, where a simple plaque commemorated the incident that sparked change. From confrontation to collaboration, it read, the words illuminated by the morning sun. The property value increases had exceeded even Thompson's optimistic projections, but the real value lay in the transformation of the community. Officer Martinez had been promoted to lead the department's community engagement division, her early stance during the incident marking her as a natural choice for the role. She regularly collaborated with Richardson Technologies' training team, ensuring that theoretical reforms translated into practical improvements on the streets. The viral videos that had once sparked outrage now appeared in training materials nationwide, their negative beginning transformed into a positive teaching tool. Social media that had once amplified division now showcased success stories from the Future Forward initiative, with millions following the program's progress. Michael's office in the new campus offered a view of both the city skyline and the street where everything had changed. The cracked tablet from that morning held a place of honor on his desk, a reminder that progress often emerged from unexpected challenges. His calendar now balanced corporate leadership with community involvement, each role enriching the other. The Richardson Technologies Board had made the Future Forward initiative a permanent part of the company's structure, recognizing that social responsibility and business success were increasingly inseparable. The program's success had attracted partners from across the corporate world, each bringing new resources and perspectives to the mission. As the sun set on another busy day at the campus, Michael stood at his office window, reflecting on the journey from that tense morning to this moment of achievement. The streets below bustled with activity. Tech workers heading home, community members attending evening programs, and police officers engaging positively with local residents. James appeared at the office door, car keys in hand. "Time for the graduation ceremony, sir," he reminded Michael. The first class of Future Forward trained officers was completing their program, their achievement marking another milestone in the ongoing journey of transformation. Michael nodded, straightening his tie as he prepared to address the graduates. The speech he had prepared touched on themes of accountability, growth, and the power of turning negative experiences into positive change. As he walked toward the ceremony hall, he passed the spot where Parker had once detained him. Now it served as a gathering place for diverse groups working together toward common goals. The incident that could have ended in division had instead sparked unity. The morning that began with confrontation had led to collaboration, and the future that once seemed uncertain now shone with promise, illuminated by the power of purposeful response to unconscious bias.